With every breath I take all of my days, I will glorify your name.
Parents, welcome to another episode of The Journey, a podcast intended to educate, equip, and entertain you as we talk about important issues facing our families. PCA is a Christ-centered, biblically based, and family-focused community of committed believers doing life together. We hope the information you hear on this podcast informs and inspires you to be a better parent. Welcome to The Journey.
Hey parents, this is Dan Panetti. Welcome back to The Journey. Hey, we got our Biblical Worldview Conference coming up September 22nd through the 24th. And as you know, every year this is such an incredible event for our community. We've got some great speakers coming in. And one of our favorite, obviously, Alan Parr, just super well-known. Everybody loves the work that he's doing. And especially on YouTube, your YouTube channel is called The Beat. And I sent out last week a link to one of your episodes that dealt with, voting Republican or Democrat, because that's a big deal right now. And so you tackle some of the more difficult, more controversial issues, and you dive in there with an incredible biblical worldview. And that's kind of the theme for the year, right? Is worldview matters. And from a practical standpoint, right, we're not just talking about worldview matters in terms of, do you believe in the resurrection and some kind of classical apologetics, but you're doing right, where the rubber meets the road. Worldview matters in how you live your life and practical things. So you get down to the nitty gritty, and I want to thank you for really doing the work. And because a lot of times when people have those conversations and somebody disagrees with you, right? We have a cancel culture. And so, you do such a great job of engaging in meaningful and important dialogue, but in a way that hopefully doesn't turn people off, but really makes people think about the dialogue. So first, I just wanted to start and just say thank you for the work that you're doing.
I appreciate that, Dan. I agree with you. I definitely do not shy away from the controversial stuff. As a matter of fact, I've got a video coming out today on just debunking pro-choice arguments. I don't know where all of our listeners stand on that, but I'm definitely pro-life, and I've got a video that will hopefully help believers to figure out how to have those engaging conversations with people who may not see things the same. And so I definitely believe that we're living in a time where we need people to take a stand and be unashamed for having a biblical worldview. So I'm excited about doing that, as well as continuing with the conference that we have coming up.
Yes. Now, specifically for the conference, the Biblical Worldview Conference, what is it? And I don't want you to dive too deep into it, but what is it
Sure.
that you hope to talk to the students and those who are attending about?
Sure. So I know there's going to be a lot of, really heavy hitter apologists, people that will be there, some of whom are my friends that will be there, and super excited about that. And so with the time that I'll have available, I know that it's a little bit more limited this year than the past. I think I have about 20 minutes on main stage, 25 minutes or so. I wanted to just be very, very practical and simple for our students. And so what I did is I put together kind of like a 10 commandments of apologetics, or a top 10 tips on how to be a better apologist. And so I'm just going to be really simple and just not going to get too deep into the cosmological argument or the teleological argument. I'll leave that up to some of the other guys. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully provide 10 very practical things that young people, and really people of any age, to be honest with you, could apply right away. Strategies, techniques, tips, things that we want to all keep in mind as we are engaging this culture in difficult conversations. And so that's going to be my main stage speech, is just really trying to provide some simple, practical tips, 10 tips on being a better apologist. And then, of course, I've got a breakout session. If you want me to, if you want me to expound on that, I can talk a little bit more about what I'm talking about there.
Yeah, the great thing is the main stage, as you mentioned, the main stage sessions are a little bit shorter. They've beefed up the breakout sessions. There's 3 different breakout times, and there's like 18 to 20 different breakout sessions in terms of like different people who are coming in and speaking. And so that's where it's going to be a little bit more interactive, and people get to ask questions. And they the feedback that we've gotten from people over the years is we want to be able to ask questions, right? Instead of just sitting and listening and digesting more information.
Yes.
It's great to get that, but it's like, hey, where do we get to ask a question and kind of get some feedback? And so
Yes.
they're really beefing up the breakout sessions, which is fantastic. Are you doing do you know what you're doing your breakout session on?
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm going to be doing a breakout session on teens and technology. Teens and
Oh,
technology. Yes, navigating the digital world.
mm,
That is a huge one. I'm going to be talking about everything from the pros and cons of technology, how technology can be used for good, and how we shouldn't shy away from it and demonize it, but also making sure that teens and parents and youth leaders are fully aware of all of the potential dangers that could come along with young people being addicted to technology, whether that might be through accessing inappropriate images and things like that that they shouldn't be looking at, or whether it might be just a time suck, to be honest with you.
mm,
Whether it's video games, whether it's Instagram, it could also affect specifically for for a lot of our young women, the social media and getting their self-confidence and their just their identity, if you will, from
yeah.
social media. And so that's a danger. We touch on that a little bit, as well as just some other things as well, like just uh, really sometimes we can lean more on technology than using our creative mind and doing critical thinking, especially with the advent of tools like ChatGPT and AI and things like that. So I really want to kind of meet the kids, well, not kids, I guess I meet the students, if you will, where they're at. This is their world. They live in this world. This is their generation. They are a digital generation, and I hope to speak into that.
Well, that'll be great because it's your world too. I mean, you've
Yeah, it
used
is.
technology, right? YouTube, to
Yes.
get to people and to be able to communicate the truth. And so you're not, one of those people who's talking about it like, technology is bad, it's harmful, don't
Oh
use it.
no.
You utilize it in a great way. And so I think that's a great topic for you to be able to talk to our students about how to use it, and how to use it well. But just like any tool, right? It can be misused, it can be idolized, and it can be harmful if you're not using it in the right manner. So that's going to be fantastic. Alan, I appreciate the time. I'm excited that you're going to be here, in just a few days, and so I want to make sure that our parents know they need to register, right, for the event.
Yes.
PrestonwoodWorldview.org, is the website. We're just really excited that you're going to be here again, sharing, a lot of what you digest in the work that you do just day in and day out. I put a link to your things a lot for our parents because you're doing this, 24/7, 365, not just at the conference, but this is, your full-time work
Mm.
is training and really digesting some of these issues from a biblical worldview. And so I just appreciate the work that you're doing and being able to come into our particular community and sharing that. Hopefully, our kids will be attached to you and say, hey, that's a guy that I need to keep track of, right? Even when he's not here at the conference, but as they go off to college and they starting to raise their families, you're one of those people that I hope people look to and glean some of the truth that you're giving them. So I just appreciate that.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I'm also excited this year to be joined by my wife, who will be one of the breakout speakers. And so that's going to be really exciting. She's going to be talking about just overall identity, kind of what's my identity, and just making sure that young people understand that they need to get their identity in Christ as opposed
Mm,
to culture and society and all the other places that the enemy would love to convince young people that their identity is wrapped up in something else other than a relationship with Christ. So it should be a great conference, and we're looking forward to coming and sharing and impacting the next generation together.
I love it. What a dynamic duel having both of the Parr family here. So thank you for spending your time with us, and thanks for just giving our parents a little preview of what's coming. And hopefully they'll be able to see you at the Biblical Worldview Conference in just a few days. So Alan, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dan. I look forward to meeting everyone. See you soon.
Awesome. Bye. Well, Jordan Sekulow, I'm so excited to have you here, Executive Director of the American Center for Law and Justice, and you're going to be at our Biblical Worldview Conference in just a few days. Wanted to get our parents to get a little bit of a meeting with you before our students get to meet you and hear from you. So, one, I just wanted to thank you for your work at ACLJ, defending our religious freedoms and really protecting what makes America great. So, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. What's the kind of the main topic that you're going to be sharing with the students? There's a thousand things I'm sure you could
Yep.
talk about in the culture, but for a group of high school students, where do you think you want to kind of drill down on and kind of focus in on what do you want them to know after you're done speaking?
Yeah. So one of the things when I started in my legal career, I did an extra year of legal education,
Hmm.
an LLM in international law, because we have a lot of offices overseas, and one of our offices is in Israel, and that one is unique. It's not called like the European office is the European Center for Law and Justice, so it has its own title. It's mostly French and European staff that are operating within their system. And then we do collaborate with at the American Center for Law and Justice, but of course they're working within a totally different legal system and a different uh, uh, international system too, because of the EU and those kind of entities. In Israel, it's ACLJ Jerusalem, and it's this unique statement that we're making. It's American Center for Law and Justice Jerusalem, that that the American people, and especially Christians and Jewish people together, come together and support the state of Israel, and that there's work that we can do legally, especially when Israel faces what we call lawfare. At those European institutions, usually the International Criminal Court or the International Court of Justice, that we are there to defend Israel. And so while we're not there to get involved in their local or domestic politics, what we are there is to do is the relationship between Israel and the United States. And for the students, I thought, it would be something I'd say every year for this conference. I would say Israel would always be top of mind for the high school students. But I think because you're talking to high school students who have been in a place like, at Prestonwood, where they've got this great background, they are going to, some of them, experience, and learn about and hear about Israel in a very different way, or maybe in a way they've never thought about in a negative light. And it won't be based necessarily on Scripture. It's not going to be based necessarily on what they've learned, in a class on the Old Testament or even the New Testament, but instead
Right.
on kind of modern day, the politics of the Middle East and the politics of terrorism and warfare, and why do we, as Americans and then as Christians, support modern day Israel? So not just biblical Israel. This idea, of course, that our faith is, comes from that part of the world. Our Savior is Jewish, and so you've got that connection. But
Right.
why do we, as Christians, see Israel as so important? And you see all these groups, and we kind of take it for granted sometimes. I think a lot of people did until October 7th, and it's not
Yes.
and it's not to just focus in on what happened on October 7th and the horrible events there, but what's happened throughout Israel's history, and why have we, as the United States and American Christians, even I'd think over the last 20 or 30 years, become more vocal supporters. Now we're starting to see a question, though, and that's inside the church as well, especially the younger church, of should we still be in support Israel the way we have, or the way we've taken for granted? And what
Yeah.
about the Palestinians? And these conversations and the protests they may see on campus? Is it again what to look out for, and why is it important to support Israel now? So that's kind of the 10,000 feet, and there's a lot of different ways to go there. But I do think that you've got to be prepared as a young person, and listen, not just and for the parents too who are going to be attending, and for folks who, I think you have to be prepared at a next level too. If you're someone who says, just generally, yeah, I support Israel, what would you do if someone said why? What's your next response, and why? Why is it important to you? And not just biblically, maybe not just from your faith perspective, but why is it important to you, today in 2024?
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Jeremiah Johnson and I, after the October 7th attack, had a great conversation about that. So I love that you're dealing with that and addressing it. Let me ask you this. Were you at all surprised and shocked? And I know you deal with cultural issues and you're on current on things, but the protest on the college campuses that were so pro-Palestinian and so pro-Hamas, right? An actual terrorist organization is being supported, and the college campuses didn't shut it down. And I know when we're on a college campus, we like free speech, right?
Sure.
But we also like education,
Yeah.
and we like everybody being protected. Were you a little bit surprised that the college campuses let these protests run so wild for so long?
Absolutely. I mean, because what these protests did, we're a free speech group. We support a lot of protesters, even people engaged in civil disobedience. We defend in criminal court. But we know that they know that those who engage in civil disobedience, which the U.S. has a history of, the civil rights movement, the pro-life movement, and some of these movements as well. They know what you're getting into as a protester if you're going to engage in civil disobedience and be arrested. So even though we have a history of it here of maybe not punishing that as strongly as regular criminal trespassing, it still is a crime. When you were basically shutting down campus, though, and making it a place that was no longer safe for Jewish students, and you're targeting Hillel, so Jewish student centers on campus, or Jewish professors who maybe have views that are not even views that we agree with on Israel, but that they are afraid to even be on campus. That's not a protest anymore. That's not American free speech anymore. That's threatening. That's the threat of violence. And I think, again, using terrorist symbols like Hamas is also something that's not necessarily protected by our First Amendment. And so the idea, could you be pro-Palestinian and have that protest? Sure. Can you have a pro-Hamas protest? Does that have the same protections? I don't think it has to. And I think the schools could have acted a lot more quickly, because these protests weren't just protests. They were intimidation campaigns, telling the Jews, and even the schools saying, we can't protect you if you come on campus. So not only are you not welcome here, but if you come here, even if you're employed by the school or you're a student at the school, we're not sure we can guarantee your safety. That's a sad place to be in the not just in the Middle East, but in the United States of America. But it's because I think that it's a more widespread, more acceptable now to question Israel, and we've seen the new left embrace this kind of, to say, oh, they're not anti-Semitic, they're anti-Zionist, and we've seen that for years at the ACLJ. The groups who are behind that are all anti-Semitic, and they are all anti-Jewish, and they use that as a cover to try and claim free speech. And though they're not the majority in Congress, they're not the majority of the left even, or of Democrats. If you're a young person and you're going off to the college campus, and it's not a Christian school, or even some Christian schools, you're definitely going to face this to some extent. And so if you're a student who cares about it, that's what I was going to use my time to do. And I think whether you're a student or a parent, that it's because you need to be ready to defend your views.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's going to be the Biblical Worldview Conference. That's the professional side. Let me ask you two kind of personal questions,
Sure.
right? Because you come from, a pretty famous legal background. Your dad is Jay Sekulow. Here's the one question: is did you have any other choice other than going into law, or was that kind of stamped on you
I wasn't.
from a young age?
So my dad, it was pretty interesting. I got it because he was. He had been an attorney. This was not the first kind of law he did. So he didn't set out in his legal career. He did not set out to be, do constitutional law and religious liberty. Almost this idea in law school. A lot of times you'll hear it in law school, even in con law classes, that this line of work is very limited to a very small group of people. So most people that are going to law school love thinking about these cases. A lot of times will volunteer their time, do it pro bono, but this is not how they make money. It's not what they get paid to do. Right. And it's not how my dad started out. He also, though, because of getting linked into this world when he was younger, and of course, I would go around, I was about maybe 12 years old, he was getting more involved into the political side of the U.S., the U.S., and that really interested me. So outside of college, I didn't immediately go to law school. I worked on political campaigns. And actually, my first year of law school, almost left law school to go back full time. I worked on a political campaign. Right when I finished my first semester exams, I got on a plane and flew to Iowa and was still doing the consulting. And I was a little older student at the time for law school. I mean, I was 20-something, so not that old. Pretty much average age. But I wasn't an 18-year-old. But I thought really that what I learned from the political world, though, was that, unless you were just going to go the campaign route, most of the policy you'd be setting that we'd be interested in, it's all kind of like established in lawmaking, right? And so going to law school, whether or not I became the executive director of the ACLJ or had another path, it was important for me at the time to get the kind of legal education for the political. And now I'd say, it's kind of flipped. I'm glad I did it so that with the ACLJ work and the international work, and sometimes getting past just partisan politics, you've got that background. So not as pushy. I will say I have an 8-year-old daughter who's already says, she's done some travel with me, who's already saying she wants to do politics and law. So we might be kind of unique and eccentric in the Sekulow family that we're attracted to that. But yeah, it's always kind of, I was exposed to it. I was like, that's the world I want to be in.
I love it. Okay. And then the other personal question is, what are you reading now outside of work? Because I know you probably read a ton of things related to the work. Do you read anything else that would be more for enjoyment, or just like a good book that you've picked up recently?
Yeah, so there's a book on, we have an office in France. There's a book called Citizens by a Columbia University professor, and it's like 900 pages. So I've got it I've got it on my bedside table. And so we do a lot of reading. The reason I was going to that book specifically is we were talking, because the fringe politics is changing a lot too. The European politics have been changing. The right in Europe, and of course they use that, sometimes can be seen negatively, but you've seen it in Hungary. We saw it with Marie Le Pen, and then you see kind of how the kind of establishment is trying to push back. So a little bit learn more about where we've got offices even though it's related to work, it's kind of like the going a step deeper than what we've learned about in college or school. So that's the book by the bedside table. I probably am not as it's probably still always somehow political, or it's I'm not a big fiction reader. I'll tell people that, be honest. But I'd say 90% of my days, by the time I am at the bed, I am probably still reading something that's a legal document, and I'm happy to do that because that's our passion, at the ACLJ. And so whether it's a legal document, a piece of legislation, or even how we write something in a letter, we spend a lot of time reading. But yeah, I'm always trying to learn more about where we're doing work, especially outside of our own country, so that you respect the culture, and also the idea of the French Revolution, the U.S. They're different things. And I was talking to our staff just about a painting, actually, because we were redoing some of our office there, just as simple as that. And I was like, I love that painting of liberty and freedom that's at the Louvre, and it's kind of like a Statue of Liberty, but the French version. And I talked to our director in France. I was like, can we get a cool reproduction of that in kind of a modern way, because it speaks to our work? And he was like, yes and no. He's like, yes, I see why you see it that way, and of course we see it that way broadly. But he's like, but that's a sign of the hard left. They've just taken over that symbolism. So that's when I was like, I need to, as we start meeting more with these European political leaders, I need to learn a little bit more about their political history, not just the wars and the World War I, World War II, but what's happening inside their own countries. So that's what I'm doing now. Might not be the most interesting in the world, but that's what I'm doing. That's what George Sekulow's got up by his bedside table.
I love it. I love it. So my favorite French attorneys, right, is Bastiat. He's got The Law, which is a great book. But then, do you know Jacques Ellul, Ellul, right? He's got a couple fantastic, perspective books dealing with the importance of the written word. I love that one, the humiliation of the word. So if you're looking for something else great to add to your reading list, that might be a good one as well. But hey, Jordan, we're super excited. I'm very thankful for the work that you do, just as an American who loves liberty, freedom, and religious liberty. So thank you for doing the work for you and your whole family, even your daughter coming up. But we're super excited to have you here in just a couple of days in September 22nd through the 24th for the Biblical Worldview Conference, and what you're going to be able to share with our students. So look forward to seeing you in a few days.
I'm excited to be there, and I'm excited to interact with folks too in those breakout sessions where I think we can really, you can take your knowledge to the next level. And I always tell people, I do a show every day, so there's no bad questions, and especially on issues that are difficult like this. And so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask me tough questions.
Awesome, Jordan. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for investing the time to listen to this episode of The Journey. Please take a minute to share with friends and family who will also benefit from this valuable resource. And don't forget to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast app. It is truly our blessing and honor to walk with you on The Journey.